Hello and welcome to another episode of TomBecka.com. Thanks for spreading the word about this. The show just keeps on growing and growing, and it really is exciting to be a part of this new podcasting, and that you have an opportunity to meet some of the people that I've had a chance to meet. And Stephanie Monge is a woman that I met about a month or so ago at a business breakfast where she spoke about doing yoga and meditation for corporations. She goes into businesses and they take time off and they put down the yoga mats and they exercise and they meditate, and it helps productivity. And well, you know, I'm not the most physically fit person in the world, and I'm also not the most calm person in the world. So the very idea of yoga and meditation, it fascinated me because it's kind of a foreign concept. Not that I'm proud of that. I actually wanted to learn here from Stephanie, and we had a great conversation. Matter of fact, if you're driving while listening to this, be careful towards the end, because towards the end, Stephanie and I actually meditate, and it's very relaxing, and I would hate to see you be driving down the road and get too wrapped up in it, and if you do, you've been warned. I bear no responsibility. You get in an accident as you're driving while meditating. Anyway, so there you go. I really found this conversation to be fascinating. I think you will too here at TomBecka.com. Oh, first of all, you do yoga and meditation, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Are they necessarily combined, or are those just two things that you are interested in?
Well, actually, in yoga, something that most people in the West don't realize that I learned when I was doing my yoga teacher training in India is that the whole point of the physical practice of yoga is to make the body strong and comfortable enough so that you can sit comfortably in meditation for long periods of time. So really, we think about the end game of yoga as being, maybe more fit or flexible or strong, but we tend not to take it that extra step in realizing that we want to be fit and flexible and strong, so actually we can sit still.
I'm afraid that if I was doing yoga, I'd be spending the whole time meditating on, I'm never going to be able to get up.
No. So with yoga, really, we're more concerned with the process than the outcome. And it's really about meeting you where you are today at this moment and recognizing that even when you've practiced for a very long time, your abilities are different from day to day, kind of depending on other things that are happening in your life, maybe emotionally, or maybe just like the level of physical activity that you've had before your practice. So if you have a good yoga teacher, then they're able to help you modify so that you're really comfortable in what you're doing. And, one thing, in a yoga class, I think as a student, especially when we start out, we really think that you're going and you need to look just like the teacher, or like you need to make your body look like the students around you. So there are mirrors and we look around, but really it's such an individualized practice. And there's so many different variables, even with our own bodies, that it's really not necessary to look like the teacher or to look like the other people around you.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that was a thing I wanted to address with you on this, in that I've heard good things about yoga. I know people that do that, but you're right. I don't see a bunch of old, fat white guys, doing yoga, right? I mean, what I see are, younger men, if they're doing it, and I see, fit women. And like I said, everybody's fit and they're wearing the yoga pants and stuff like that. And I don't see a lot of out of shape people doing that. Is it difficult to get people that are out of shape to even try it?
It really depends. A lot of times my clients who I work with who maybe are a little bit older, and I mean older like 50 or 60 plus, or people who are working on weight loss, a lot of times will start as like a private client. So I meet with people individually. Like I have a gentleman right now who's in his mid 60s, had never tried yoga before, but his doctor had told him that she thought it would be good for him. And so we met at a barbecue and he just happened to mention it, and I told him, well, hey, I can help you. And so we've just done our first 3 sessions just one-on-one, and now tomorrow actually he's coming into his first gentle yoga class to see how he likes it in a class environment.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. And so into like there are classes that are like gentle yoga, or classes that are more sort of welcoming to people of different shapes and sizes. And again, a lot of it has to do with the teacher and like who is the person who's talking to you about it, or like trying to get you to come into a class, and how comfortable you feel with that.
So you should shop around. If you wanted to get into yoga, maybe shop around to find the right teacher.
Yes. I mean, it's really, I liken it to a hairdresser, because it's like you find the hairdresser that you like, and no matter where they go to different salons, like you follow them because you know that they do a great job cutting your hair. You're happy with the results. So I think that weirdly, I have found as I've moved around even that I am always surprised when people follow me, but it's because we have that really personal connection, especially someone who's like beginner or just trying it out.
Okay, you mentioned gentle yoga. I assume that is the beginning class, right?
Yeah. Or like a beginner's yoga, or else like restorative or yin yoga. Those are things that you can look for on a class schedule where you know they're going to be like low key, a lot more like stretching and relaxation focused.
Who goes to those?
A wide variety of people. I love those types of classes because I'm on my feet teaching all day. And so I'm really tired. Like when I go to practice yoga, I'm not looking for a power class or a really fast, vigorous class. Like I'm using it really to relax and chill out. So it's a huge array of people who would be in those restorative classes.
You said the one gentleman that you're teaching, his doctor said it would benefit him.
Sure. Okay,
every doctor says, hey, you got to lose weight, exercise, all that stuff. Why yoga as opposed to going on a treadmill or going to the gym?
Sure. And I mean, I don't know that people are necessarily looking towards yoga as a weight loss solution. I mean, with this gentleman, I'm certain that his goal isn't really weight loss. It's strength training. Mm-hmm. So like he wants to get stronger. He wants to be more flexible. And then also too, just a stress reduction. So, I mean, there are studies that have shown that over time it can, lower your blood pressure and other health effects like that. So.
Okay. So that's other issues that maybe just weight loss or what you might think of a traditional gym doing.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. It's so different. I mean, it's very different.
Okay. What about the different types? I mean, I know I heard the term, was it Bikram?
Bikram.
Bikram.
Yeah.
What is that?
So that's a specific type of hot yoga. So a lot of times...
Wait, before you go to that then,
sure.
Let's start with the broad thing, because I was going to ask about hot yoga next. I didn't know that hot yoga was the broader spectrum.
Yeah.
What is hot yoga?
It just means that they turn the heat up in the room.
Why?
Because of Bikram, in my opinion. I think because when people saw that happening with Bikram, they wanted to practice in a really hot room. I think they're maybe feeling like more detoxed when they're really sweaty, or to those people who want just a vigorous practice where maybe they're runners. So they're used to a really sort of high impact workout. They're used to being really sweaty when they're done. But Bikram, the difference there is it's a specific sequence. So it's a specific sequence of poses that's the same every single class all the time. So I think with hot yoga, it was, in my opinion, and this is just speculation, probably people who just wanted to go beyond that sequence or like wanted more variety, but liked how it felt to be in a really hot environment doing it.
Okay, so how is it different doing it in a hot environment as opposed to just doing it regularly?
You just sweat more. I
mean,
okay,
that's it, right?
I don't know. I mean, that's what I think. Having done yoga, I mean, in India, living there in April and May, and it was pretty hot. So I mean, it was all hot yoga because there was no air conditioning. So
now, did you go to India to practice yoga and meditation, or were you in India and from being in India you learned about yoga and meditation?
No, I went to India specifically to learn about yoga, and I had actually just before that been in Nepal learning about meditation. I had done a 10-day silent meditation at a Vipassana center outside of Kathmandu. Mm-hmm. And actually it would have been better to do it the opposite way, because the things I learned even in India about anatomy and just like how I can sit comfortably and like things that I can do in my body, even just in my seated position, to be more comfortable in meditation would have been helpful before I did it for 100 hours.
Now, could you have gotten that same education here in the States?
Yeah, well, there definitely, yes. You can you can become a yoga teacher in the United States, yes. You can become a yoga teacher that's accredited by the same body that has accredited the school that I attended in India. So short answer, yes, you can become certified in the U.S.
But there's a little bit more panache to it if you say that, oh, yeah, I studied yoga in India.
Well, I mean, definitely my background is marketing. Uh-huh. So I understood that piece of it. But really with my program, so if you do an intense teacher training in the U.S., the ones that I am familiar with, they're typically maybe like a 1 month long program, and they're not necessarily residential. So like you're you're there, probably Monday through Friday from like 9 in the morning to like 4 in the afternoon. And then you go home and, maybe you have some weekend things as well. But in India, I was there, the training, instead of 1 month, it was 6 weeks, and it was residential. So our training started at 5 in the morning and lasted until 8 at night. So it was, in my opinion, more vigorous. Much more vigorous.
What do you learn of that? I mean, just the different positions and stuff? What do you learn?
No, so there are a bunch of different sort of pieces. There's a specific criteria in order to be a yoga teacher who's accredited by Yoga Alliance, which is the accrediting body for yoga in America, but also they're recognized internationally. And so there is so much like history. There's so many hours of philosophy. There's so many hours of asana, which is the poses. There's a meditation piece. There's a pranayama piece, which is using your breath in different ways to produce a different outcome. So either maybe calming down or being more sort of feeling more invigorated, or just expanding your lung capacity. So there are lots of different pieces. So we would start in the morning with chanting mantras. So we would chant mantras, and then we would meditate, and then we would have tea, and then we would practice yoga, and we would have the asana practice. And then we would do anatomy and physiology, and then we would do philosophy with some breaks in between. And then we would go back to meditate again, and then practice asana again, and then doing more pranayama or mantra.
Now, if I go to a beginner's yoga class, how much philosophy is involved in that?
Not very much. I want to say 0, but that's maybe not accurate. Not very much. No, not very much.
At what point does philosophy become part of the yoga experience?
In America, it doesn't really, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're Americans. You go on your lunch hour, you work out, you do the yoga thing, you wear the pants, and you just tell your friends that you're into yoga, and they all think you're cool, right?
Yeah. So in an actual class, I say that, and that's just based on my experience in classes that I've attended. So I haven't attended every yoga school in Omaha, so in no way can I say at all that I have comprehensive knowledge of what happens in yoga schools here. So really, it depends on the studio, it depends on the teacher, and sort of how much they value it, but also too that's dictated by like what their students want, because at the end of the day it's a business too. So it's like if your students are coming and they want to get fit and that's how you keep your classes full, then it probably makes sense for you to keep doing that.
Okay, you mentioned that your background is in marketing, and you mentioned that yoga is a business. Did you go to India to really just put together your business? In other words, is this, you say, hey, yoga is a trendy thing right now. I'm in marketing. I'll go to India. I'll study. I'll learn how to do yoga. It'd be a nice little business.
No.
Or was it more of a spiritual quest that you went on?
Sure. It was somewhere in between. I mean, I expected I would come out a yoga teacher on the other end, but I didn't necessarily anticipate that's how I would make a living, because realistically, that isn't realistic. I was lucky enough to find a niche with corporate yoga and working with businesses, and I was lucky enough to be coming back to Omaha at the right time where there was really nobody who was dominating that niche or that market. And I started my career as a business journalist at the World Herald, so I was very well connected in the business community, and then went into working in marketing for a startup, and then traveled for a few years. So I guess no, I didn't think that it would be something that I would make a living off of. That idea came later. Before I had traveled, one of my yoga teachers sort of suggested that maybe I would think about being a yoga teacher at some point. And I really had never thought about that because, of course, you never think oh, yeah, I'm good enough at this thing that I could teach it. And the thing that really hooked me in with that is she said, you can travel around the world and teach and lead retreats. And so it was the travel part that actually really hooked me. But it was a year and a half into traveling all around the world before I actually made it to India and did a teacher training. And the first place I taught yoga was actually in England at a bodybuilder's gym outside of London. So
what is it, do you think? Because I don't recall yoga being this big of a deal, years and years ago. maybe was I naive, or is this really an uptrend now where it really is catching, momentum and more people are doing yoga?
I think that's it. I think honestly, in the last 5 years, even the yoga environment in Omaha, from the time I left at the very beginning of 2011, and then returning 2 years later, it was amazing to me the number of yoga studios that had popped up. And
they're all over the place.
The teacher trainings, that's the thing. Everyone's just like turning out new yoga teachers. But I mean, I don't know where they're going to go and who's going to pay them.
Well, but if more and more people, if the demand is there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're a little bit saturated in Omaha right now. And I think that if it's something that you're passionate about, and you really you love it and you want to share, I think then it's a great second part-time job for the most part. I think that it's just too hard, because if you're working at a studio or like working for the YMCA, I mean, you could never teach enough classes in a week to live on, just because of what you get paid per class. Like it's not feasible.
Is this just my perception, or my guess is that if I took not only just in Omaha, but nationwide, the people doing yoga, I'm guessing 95% female. Is that be a fair estimation?
Oh, I don't actually think so. My classes, I think, are a little bit different because I work in a corporate setting where I guess maybe there are more men in those classes, but actually not really. I think my classes that I teach at the studio where I rent from, and then also my community classes, I would say I have 40% male students. So I think it's about finding a class where they feel comfortable, and, sometimes that has to do with like the music, sometimes that has to do with the environment, sometimes that has to do with the teacher. So no, I don't know. 95% I think is a huge overestimation, but I do think, yes, it is a majority women. I don't know what the percentage would be, but it's lower.
You mentioned corporate work. Do companies hire you then to like go to their office and say, all right, guys, everybody's taking an hour break. Now we're going to do yoga? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so it depends. Sometimes it works that way. So with my business, I work with companies either coming on site to do ongoing classes. So 6 weeks at a time, they hire me for sessions. I come at the same time and day, and we do either yoga or meditation, or a combination of both, depending on what the clients are looking for. Otherwise, I do one-time like workshops or retreats, and do a lot of work with stress relief, or helping people to just learn how to incorporate different techniques from yoga and meditation into their daily life and like into their work life. So things that are really practical and really easy. That's the key, especially in the corporate setting.
I want to get into meditation here in a minute or two, but a few more questions about yoga. We talked about hot yoga and Bikram yoga and the beginner's yoga. What other kinds are there?
Too many to name.
Really?
Yeah, really. I mean, it doesn't.
Is there a wet yoga? Is there
there's naked yoga. So vinyasa is a form of yoga where it's really flowing, very fluid. Hatha is the type of yoga that I was trained in, and hatha is, kind of like the standard yoga. It's sort of like the base, and then things sort of branch out from there. There's like acro yoga, where really it's like using like acrobatics and hanging from ribbons and like other things. Or using partners to do just like really crazy, awesome things. So honestly, there are too many to name. There are dozens, if not more.
How do you know what kind of yoga you want to do? Is it a thing where you just go in, if you get into it a little bit, you say, oh, I like that. I'll try the acrobatic yoga now. And then you do that for a while, and you say, okay, I'll do the naked yoga now.
Yeah,
what I mean? Is that the sort of a thing? Or do people like go and get out a pamphlet and start going through all the different types and decide what they want?
I don't think most people probably do it that way. From experience, really, a lot of my students, they come as like a guest of someone else, or they've heard about me from somewhere else. So I think a lot of it is word of mouth. And again, a lot of it is the attraction to the teacher or the actual studio, I think, more than the type of yoga. And I think once you practice a little bit more, maybe you become curious about other types, or I think it's just as likely you find that place you really like, and then that's your style of yoga because you love the environment or the teacher or the class or whatever it is.
So it's a thing, really, a lot of it is social.
Oh yeah, sure. I definitely in the West, yeah, it's a lot more social than. It's a much
It's
more of a
hey,
social thing
well,
than
it's
like
time
in
for our
India.
yoga class. Let's all go, and they go and
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. I mean, in India, it's definitely, I would say, more of a sort of an individualized journey in your teacher training. And of course, like everyone like talks and like hangs out and we do stuff together. But I think ideally there's like a little bit less chatter and and more like time to like reflect and be in silence because we don't give ourselves that time ever. In Omaha, yeah, and I guess I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I can only speak to like some of the places I've been to.
Okay,
So I'm not sure.
but you don't comment on like in Omaha versus some of the other places. So you were saying this is an American thing, or maybe
Yeah. And so when I say Omaha, I guess generally I mean West.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean like practicing yoga in the West. Yeah, it's more social. But I mean it's okay. And the thing, that my teachers in India really talked about was just, people have a certain level of understanding, whatever the reason is that they come to yoga. They'll develop the reason that they stay, and maybe initially it is social, but after you practice, like you can't help but feel these other, benefits, or noticing that you're using, breath work or controlling your breath to help calm down when you're in a stressful situation during the day, or other things like that, or even, there is some like philosophy that can be weaved into classes. Maybe like at the beginning, setting an intention, or maybe at the end, or a little bit throughout. So, I think that teachers do kind of sneak some of that stuff in there, in a way that I think the students don't even necessarily realize, but it does soak in over time.
One last question on the yoga, then we'll get to the meditation. I've been to nude beaches. You go to a nude beach, the people there aren't necessarily people who want to see naked.
Sure.
Is it the same thing true with naked yoga? And is that just something you just threw out there, or are there actually like a lot of classes for that sort of thing?
I am not aware of any naked yoga classes in Omaha.
Okay.
I know there are naked yoga studios in New York City, and I have never been to a naked yoga class, so I am not sure at all who shows up. But it probably, the same way like a nude beach is just like regular people naked, nude yoga is probably still just like regular people naked. Yeah, would be my guess.
Yeah, it's a gimmick, probably a gimmick.
Yeah, maybe
is it a gimmick, or is it a spiritual aspect?
I don't know what the reason is, and like if I would just completely guess about the reason, maybe it has something to do with like really being like free or uninhibited, or like comfortable enough like with yourself, or loving yourself enough that you could be in that vulnerable position where you would do it naked in front of other people. So maybe something like that. I don't know.
I'd just be too nervous that I might sit on my balls, and that would just...
Oh my God. I don't know. I just think it would be a really big distraction. It's hard enough to keep people focused when there are clothes on. I'm not sure. That's my thought. I don't know how you could just not be distracted by everything.
Yes. So much for the relaxing part of it. Yes. Let's talk about the meditation.
Sure.
Okay. I think at least people of my generation first became aware of meditation through the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, transcendental meditation, the Beatles, and all that stuff, right? But there's a lot of...
I actually lived like 2 blocks from there in India.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, the Beatles ashram, they call it now. But yeah, where the Maharaji was, it's totally abandoned at this point.
Well, the Beatles ashram, they were only there for about a week or two, weren't they?
Yeah, it wasn't... Yes, they had a falling out.
Yeah. Yeah, but so what, now they're in India, it's all pretty empty, that part now, as far as the ashram goes, or what?
Oh, just that ashram. It's owned, I think right now, the land is owned by the Indian government. And so there are some people who guard it, and for like $1, they'll let you in and like walk you around and give you a tour.
Hey, here's where Mia Farrow was.
Oh, no, but but really, it's like and who knows if it's true or not. I don't know. But they'll tell you like, oh, this was a meditation hut where John Lennon was, or like whoever. And so it's interesting because you go and like lots of people will go there and they'll meditate in their little buildings. And the energy there is amazing. So whether it is that collective energy from like all of the people who've come there and just believed that like that's where John Lennon was sleeping, or whether it's because John Lennon really was sleeping there, or whether it's a combination of both, it's a really interesting place. And actually there's a documentary on YouTube. When we were there was a project to paint a big mural in one of the old meditation halls or something. And so there's this like beautiful mural that I took part in helping paint. And there's a documentary on YouTube. It was a bunch of people from all over the world doing it.
Painting a mural in India about the John Lennon.
Yeah, I mean, but like in their like the ashram, the Maharaji's ashram.
I'll have to check that out. But actually in college, I had a couple of friends who went and got into transcendental meditation, went and got into TM, and after they got into it, they sort of like mocked it.
Sure.
It was like, ooh, we're looking for constant bliss. And,
Sure.
And the whole thing, if you meditated enough, you could actually float and all of that
Sure.
stuff, And so they got to the point where they're actually mocking it, although they wouldn't tell me what their mantra was. It's like, no, we can't tell you the mantra. If we do, the gods will come and strike us down or whatever. I mean, it was a different time.
Sure.
But what is different with, like, that transcendental meditation and, like, the meditation? I met you at a business breakfast, and you did a meditation session, a brief little meditation session, and that wasn't TM, was it? It was just
No. So I mean, just like yoga, there are so many different types of meditation as well. So really, meditation at its root is just mindfulness, paying attention to what you're doing. So just that awareness. We spend so much time multitasking, trying to do a billion things at once. But when we just focus on one activity at a time, in fact, we're starting to meditate. So the type of meditation that I teach pretty frequently is a form of meditation where you really use the breath as a tool to help stay present. So it's just an observation of the breath, like without trying to control it or do anything to deepen it or change it. It's just, and really too, meditation is about observing without reacting. And when we can just sit and practice that observation without reaction, that really has benefits in the rest of our life, because it's when that person cuts us off in traffic, or, we have the worst server ever, or things that are much worse that happen to us and we get really upset. Instead of just blindly reacting and getting really mad, we can just take a moment and be like, oh, you know what? Like, maybe this isn't the end of the world. Like, I can just sit here for a couple more minutes and this is going to be done with. And, I can choose not to freak out.
But it's so much more fun to flip somebody off in traffic.
And I used to think that too. I worked in a newsroom, then I worked at a tech startup. I worked in high stress environments. I worked in the newspaper industry when things were very uncertain and many people were losing their jobs. And I was, freaking out was like my favorite thing ever. I think that, yes, there was something very satisfying about really being mad or upset or angry or whatever. But really after years now of practicing yoga, of practicing meditation, just gradually I just recognized just the change in myself, that like realizing that it isn't going to be that satisfying to just freak out, or that like what's going to happen afterwards, what kind of damage control am I going to have to do, or I really used to felt like I had to sort of speak my truth all the time and tell people how it was, even if they didn't like it. And now I've developed this compassion where I realize, well, maybe there's a better way to say it, or maybe there are times when like it just doesn't need to be said, Does
that come with meditation, or does that just come with good judgment with age?
No. I think meditation, I used to always, my favorite thing would, be to say about people like, oh, just act like an adult. But like, how many people do we know who are, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who are still, flying off the handle, being totally unreasonable, throwing tantrums? It isn't an age thing. I mean, like, that is not, I don't think that's limited by age. And really, there are so many studies that have shown that increased compassion is a huge byproduct of meditation, which is really interesting and was unexpected and not something that I could have understood before. But I think now, as I understand it a little bit more, it just has to do with not reacting, like being able to kind of like wait a second and sort of like contemplate things a little bit more and realize like, oh, you know what, like that person is yelling at me because they're mad about something else happening. Like it doesn't, in fact, a lot of times when other people are upset with us or when we're upset with them, it's not actually really what's happening right there. Like there's something bigger, there's something deeper. So I think with meditation, that's when we like start to sort of just by being still, just by trying not to react, just by breathing, that awareness, like you just start to develop that awareness, because honestly, I think we all have that sort of awareness in us, but there are just all these other things that, that just muddy it or make it complicated. And our experiences, the way people have treated us before, all of these other things that we just get so wrapped up in and hold on to. And the more we hold on to them, it shapes our experiences and like the way we treat people moving forward. And so I think it's like meditation is almost that chance to like undo those knots, like undo those things.
When you started becoming more mellow, I imagine your friends noticed a change in you. Do you think you lost some friends because of it? In other words, because there are people out there, and we all know them, that live off the drama, they live off the energy, they live off of that, and then you become more of a, hey, whatever happens, sort of a person.
Sure.
Did that bother some people?
I don't know. That's a really hard question to answer, because a lot of that initial transformation was happening when I wasn't in Omaha, because I was spent 2 years in Australia and Asia, and in the UK, and then moved back to Omaha at the end of all of that. And so my relationships were different because I'd been gone for 2 years. And I mean, I probably lost like some drinking buddies, and like I still will go out and enjoy like a cocktail now, but not the way I did before, because now I'm busy like teaching at night. But yeah, I have fewer relationships now than I did before, but they're so much richer. And I did spend a lot of time sort of mourning the loss of those relationships. And then I just realized that the people who had come into my life since then, or the people who were still there, our relationships were so much richer and deeper than they ever were before, that although I think I have a smaller circle, it's so much more fulfilling, which is good, because like starting a business, it was really hard. Like it was so hard. So I was lucky to have a good support system.
I read a quote one time with Robin Williams, and he made the comment. He says, yeah, on your 20th birthday, you want to be surrounded by 8,000 friends. On your 50th birthday, you want to be surrounded by 3.
Sure.
And that really, I think it's true just in general as you grow and develop as a person. But so with meditation, do I need to really go and have lessons in meditation? In other words,
no.
I mean, I can just, because I know, like for myself, I have a tough day at work. Sometimes I'll just get in the car and I'll just go for a drive. I'll just go for a drive, and I'll maybe have the radio off and just drive, or maybe have the radio on cranked up and just drive. And I'll look at the horizon and the sunset, and I come back, relaxed and refreshed.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're just focused on that one activity. So no, you don't need lessons to start meditating at all. I mean, I argue you don't need any resources. And you can really start, like you said, with a drive or with a run, or even a yoga practice is a moving meditation, or a bike ride, or mowing the lawn, or gardening, or whatever it is that is like one thing that you can focus on that you enjoy doing. With meditation, like you can start with just 2 minutes a day. It really is not something where you need to sit for 1 hour or 2 hours. And if you don't have that time, you may as well not try. Just like the exercise that we did at the breakfast, that was just 3 minutes. That was 3 minutes long. And so it doesn't take long. I would say if you want to start meditating, you can start, set a timer, and like just start setting a timer for like 2 or 3 minutes. So just a few minutes, but make sure you set the timer, because otherwise people like you just like open your eyes and you're like, oh, how long has it been? Especially when you just start, it's too tempting. And then just like close your eyes for sure. Always. It helps if you meditate in the same place. So find a place in your home or wherever it's going to be that you decide you are going to meditate, and maybe you have like a blanket or some kind of cushion that you use, and have it be the same place and the same thing that you sit on, because it kind of starts to like build your energy and like build the routine, and eventually will make it easier to like get into meditation. But you can really just start closing your eyes, observing your breath for just a few minutes a day, maybe like right when you wake up in the morning, right before bed, or anytime when you feel like you need to kind of recharge, and then extend the time as you feel more comfortable.
So I don't need a mantra per se.
No. So, I mean, one way that you could meditate would be using a mantra. So either a mantra you come up with, a mantra you get from somewhere else, a mantra that's in Sanskrit, like Om, or some people use music. Some people meditate. You can meditate on sound. You can meditate on sensations. You can meditate observing the sensations in your body, like with your eyes closed. You're just kind of scanning your body, looking for any sensations, but again, without judgment or expectation, just observing what's happening and kind of like moving on, knowing that it's not permanent.
Prayer, I think another one, right? I know that I was raised Catholic, and doing the rosary.
Sure.
Just the constant repetition of Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you, and you would do it, but yet there would be a calming effect on it while you're just repeating the same thing. Actually, and if you look at the rosary and compare it to other cultures,
sure,
they all have the prayer beads or something similar to that, don't they?
That's exactly right. So a mala is typically what it would be called in like Hindu or in Buddhism. And this actually bracelet, these are meditation beads. I worked with some girls from Girls Inc. yesterday and we just made them. And so, yeah, definitely. And so with that, the way that I use a meditation beads to meditate is I just take one bead between my index finger and my thumb, and I close my eyes and I do one inhale and exhale on that bead. And then I move to the next bead, one inhale, one exhale. Otherwise, like you could go through and have a mantra and say the mantra and go through. But yeah, it's very similar.
I know that I probably should relax more than I do. Being in broadcasting, I have that same life you were talking about, in the newspaper. Kind of thrive on the deadline. Right now in the situation where quite honestly things are going rather well, but there's not a lot of drama, and there's part of me that misses that, that constant, you can't keep on living with that confrontation and that sort of thing, but at the same time, there is an adrenaline rush to that.
Sure.
How do you turn that off and get to enjoy the peace, enjoy the silence?
Practice. That's really it. Practice. So much practice. At the end of your yoga class, always there's Shavasana. So it's a final relaxation, and it's a time where you lay down and you just do nothing with your eyes closed. For me, I think that it was probably 3 years before I could keep my eyes closed for the full 3 or 5 minutes at the end of class, because my eyes would be open. I was looking around, sussing things out, seeing if anybody else's eyes are open. It was to be silent and to be still was so difficult. And it really, it's a practice. Meditation is a practice. Yoga is a practice. It's something that you just come to over and over again, but you just have to try to let go of the expectations. That is the biggest part with yoga or with meditation. We're really trying to embrace the journey without thinking too much about the outcome, because then our attention isn't in the present moment. We're, putting it out to the future and just kind of imagining these things, creating them in our mind, but they're not necessarily going to happen. So they're not real. They're not real. The only thing that's real is what's happening right now.
I agree with that in theory. I understand what you're saying, because you're right. All we really have is right now. We don't know what, those people at 9/11, they had that moment in the elevator, and then all of a sudden, boom,
Sure.
So that's really all we have, and I understand that. You also can't do anything about the past and all
right.
of that, which also looks good on paper. But in reality, it's tough to let the past go or to not worry about the future.
Oh, yeah. No, it's so hard. When did I say this was easy work? I didn't ever,
Okay, fine.
I didn't. So, yeah, so I'm definitely not. It's not easy. It isn't easy. Really, it isn't. This hasn't been an easy journey for me, but it's been worth it and it's been rewarding. So yeah, I don't.
No, okay.
It's not always fun. For sure. And sometimes we're better than others. And even with my yoga practice, I would be really consistent for a few years, and then I would fall off for 6 months. So you come back to it, and that's it. And you just keep coming back. Just
when things get too tense, just go and do a little. Okay, let's do. You say about a minute or two.
Sure.
Let's do a minute or two of meditation right now. Okay? For somebody that maybe doesn't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
Let's do a minute or two of just sort of what we did that first time that I met you.
Perfect.
Okay? What do we do?
Okay, so you go ahead and start just sitting up nice and tall. So finding that place where your spine is long, the crown of your head is moving up away from your tailbone, but you're not over-exaggerating the lift in your chest. So you're feeling tall, but you're feeling supported. And then closing your eyes, just starting to bring your awareness to the breath. So observing the breath as you breathe in and out of the nose. Not trying to change the breath necessarily, but observing what happens. Starting to let go of the thoughts that are coming into your head. As they come through, just imagining that they're like clouds floating through the sky. So they're just passing through, no need to hold on to them. And as your mind starts to stray from the breath, just gently guide that awareness back to the inhale and exhale. Maybe starting to scan your body for any areas of tension or tightness, bringing your awareness to the crown of your head, and then letting the awareness move down over your face, to your neck and shoulders. When you come across any of these areas of tension or tightness, just use the breath, use the exhale to imagine that you're letting it go. And whenever the mind strays, you can just bring the attention back to the breath. Observing the flow of air through the nostrils, the back of your throat. Observing the rise and the fall of the lungs with each breath. We'll take one final deep breath, breathing in through the nose, and with an exhale, you can sigh out through the mouth.
Okay, a couple of questions about that. Which I wanted to just interrupt you in the middle of it and ask the questions. But,
Good job not doing that.
I didn't. Two things. Number one, why in through the nose and not through the mouth?
Well, so I use that as like a release. Yeah, I only use that breath. Typically in yoga, you're breathing in and out of the nose. Using pranayama, some of the breathing exercises, that changes. But for the most part, during your practice, you breathe in and out of the nose. When you breathe out of the mouth, I instruct students to do that just as kind of a final release. So it really, I think, can help people to visualize that when you're breathing out, you're really releasing the tension, like it's leaving your body. So even sometimes I ask people to visualize that they're breathing out a dark cloud. And so, I don't know, students just find it helpful. They seem to like it.
Then the other thing is that I did a podcast with a hypnotist. Mm-hmm. And what you were doing is the same thing he was doing.
Interesting.
I mean, that same sort of relax, let your mind concentrate on your breath, be thinking these thoughts, that sort of the thing, the same sort of cadence and the same sort of tone in your voice that he was using during hypnosis.
That's interesting. So some of what I was using is a technique called Yoga Nidra. And so Yoga Nidra is also referred to as yogic sleep. It's like a really deep relaxation technique. And so when you practice Yoga Nidra, you just lay down on the ground in corpse pose, like you're in your final relaxation pose, and you just scan your awareness over different parts of your body. So a lot of times a teacher will lead you through it, and they'll just say, bring your awareness to your forehead, to your chin, to your cheeks, to your nose. And they just have you move your awareness all over. And you really do just like go into this hypnotic state. Like it does put you in a trance. And I guess depending on what happens in Shavasana, that final relaxation, if someone's talking you through it, I guess I do try to use my voice to kind of get people to relax a little bit more. Or else like the final relaxation is just totally silent or there'll be like music playing. But sometimes I find people are less distracted when I talk to them because it gives them something to focus on that isn't all the thoughts that are coming into their brain.
We just did one for about a minute, 2 minutes or so. And you said that a few times, 2 or 3 minutes a day. is there an optimum amount of time to meditate? In other words, if I want to meditate for an hour, is that too much?
No. I mean, my yoga teacher in India told me to come back when I could meditate for 3 hours, and that he would teach me some of the higher spiritual things. In my meditation course in Nepal, we were basically instructed to meditate for 2 hours a day. So 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. I don't do that. I don't. I totally don't. And I mean, I think it sounds cliche to say, I don't have time as a business owner, because really, meditation, I use meditation, I emergency meditate if I need to. If I'm feeling really stressed and have a bunch of stuff to do and I'm not sure how I'm going to prioritize things, I'll just take 10 minutes, sit down and meditate. And pretty much 100% of the time when I come out, I'm like, okay, boom, this is how I'm going to tackle this. So I meditate really for 30 minutes at a time. Probably I only meditate one time a day unless I'm teaching a meditation class or in a, have a chance to meditate with my students sometime later in the day. But as an individual, I mean, I shoot for 15 to 30 minutes a day, and it doesn't even happen every day. So
Okay. Last question. As someone that now has worked on yoga and being calm and meditation and everything, in your relationships, if you get really angry, does the person have to look at you and say, now, Stephanie, now, so you really can't afford to get angry, they look at you and say, now, come on, do your meditation, calm down, when sometimes you just want to yell.
Yeah, this is a really great question, and my husband may or may not appreciate the answer. So he is probably the number one person who puts me in check when I'm getting really angry about something and will remind me. But generally that anger is directed at him, and that's why he's reminding me in those instances. But, I'm a human. Yeah. I mean, I have been called a hypocrite if I've been totally upset about something, but it's just no, I am a human just like you are. I'm not perfect. I do yoga and I do meditation. That doesn't make me perfect,
The reason I asked that question as a radio talk show host,
sure.
There have been times that I've gotten into an argument and heavy duty discussion with a woman I'm dating, and she looks at me and says, "Shut up! You're not on your program now.
Sure.
There's no art." And it's okay, you got me
sure.
beat. Okay, so I lose the argument just on that.
Sure.
So yeah,
that's funny.
But you're right. I mean, we're not human. We're all trying to, get better, and that's what this is, right? Just a way to yoga and meditation as a way to help you get better.
Yeah, exactly. Be better at life.
Is your husband also into yoga and meditation?
Oh my gosh. Not meditation as much, but yoga. Yeah, he was one of my first yoga students, and now his physical practice has surpassed my physical practice. His inversions and the things he can do upside down are much more impressive than the things I can do upside down. So yeah, he loves it. He wants to become a yoga teacher as well.
Well, I doubt I'm going to be doing anything upside down anytime soon, but I may give yoga a try and give that a try. And I have been using some of her meditation techniques to try to relax a bit more, to focus a bit more. And yeah, I know, old habits die hard, but I'm trying. I'm learning. I'm trying to, and that's what all this is about. These podcasts are about learning and finding out about people and things and places and thank you for joining us once again and being part of this community. If you like what we're doing here, please tell your friends. Put it on your podcast page. Maybe you do have a podcast page. Put it on there. Or put it on your Facebook, Twitter accounts. Let them know about TomBecka.com. Till we do it again, take care and bye, y'all.